I'd like to have you turn me to the book of 2 Kings, 2 Kings in chapter number 5, to the book of 2 Kings in chapter number 5. I'd like us to read from verse number 1 all the way down to verse number 15, but just to make it easier on you, let me read from verse 1 down to verse 12, and then we can all pick it up at verse 13 and go all the way to verse number 15. As is our practice, or at least it is right now, we'll be reading out of the New King James Version. If you don't have that translation, no problem. Just follow along on the screens. And so let me read aloud and loudly, starting at 2 Kings chapter 5, verse number 1. Now Naaman, commander of the army of the king of Syria, was a great and honorable man in the eyes of his master, because by him the Lord had given victory to Syria. He was also a mighty man of valor, but a leper. And the Syrians had gone out on raids and had brought back captive a young girl from the land of Israel. She waited on Naaman's wife. Then she said to her mistress, "If only my master were with the prophet who is in Samaria, for he would heal him of his leprosy." And Naaman went in and told his master, saying, "Thus and thus said the girl who is from the land of Israel." Then the king of Syria said, "Go now, and I will send a letter to the king of Israel." So he departed and took with him 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold, and 10 changes of clothing. Then he brought the letter to the king of Israel, which said, "Now be advised, when this letter comes to you, that I have sent Naaman my servant to you, that you may heal him of his leprosy." Verse 7. And it happened when the king of Israel read the letter that he tore his clothes and said, "Am I God to kill and make alive, that this man sends a man to me to heal him of his leprosy? Therefore, please consider and see how he seeks to quarrel with me." So it was, when Elisha, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had torn his clothes, that he sent to the king, saying, "Why have you torn your clothes? Please let him come to me, and he shall know that there is a prophet in Israel." Then Naaman went with his horses and chariots and stood at the door of Elisha. And Elisha sent a messenger to him, saying, "Go and wash in the Jordan 7 times, and your flesh will be restored to you, and you shall be clean." But Naaman became furious and went away and said, "Indeed, I said to myself, he shall surely come out to me and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God, wave his hand over the place and heal the leprosy. Are not the Abnon and Parphar, the rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? Could I not wash in them and be clean?" So he turned and went away in rage. Verse 13, let's all read. And his servants, let's see, verse 13, let's all read. Oh, together, I'm sorry, I meant to say the word together. I'm sorry, forgive me for that, okay? Let's try it again, verse 13. And his servants came near and spoke to him and said, "My father, if the prophet had told you to do something great, would you not have done it? How much more then when he says to you, 'Wash and be clean'?" So he went down and dipped 7 times in the Jordan, according to the saying of the man of God, and his flesh was restored like the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. And he returned to the man of God, he and all his aides, and came and stood before him. And he said, "Indeed, now I know that there is no God in all the earth except in Israel. Now, therefore, please take a gift from your servant." May the Lord add a blessing to the reading, to the hearing, and more importantly, to the application of his word. This to me is a marvelous story about where we are as a church. It's about evangelism, discipleship. It's about realizing that the Lord has given gifts to various people, various groupings of people, and they're to be used to further his kingdom. See, this is a story of a Gentile. Let me say it again. This is a story of a Gentile who comes to a knowledge of God. I'm not talking about an Israelite, someone who was under covenant. I'm not talking about in the New Testament. I'm talking about even in the Old Testament. God was still out to try to find people who would come to him, even to the point that he was reaching out to those people. And it's interesting how he reaches out to the people. He reaches out by finding people who are open to his leading. There's a scripture in the book of Job, in Job chapter number 6 and verse number 25. It says, how forceful are right words. Can we say that? How forceful are right words. And there are three groups of people, and there are words that they use. And those words are important in terms of bringing Naaman to the place we find him, where he, a Gentile, he, a Syrian, comes and turns to the true and the living God. And there are people out there now who do not know God, that God wants to have them turn toward him. And he uses us to do that. When it says how forceful, the word forceful means mighty, powerful, effective, but it also means painful. Because sometimes that which brings a change in my life can appear to be painful at first. Ask Naaman, because what was told him was painful to him. It begins, though, by talking about a young girl in 2 Kings chapter number 5. Now, this Naaman in verse number 1, he's a commander of the army. He's someone that's well respected. He's second to the king. The king considers him an honorable man. But there's something about him. As mighty as he is, as much of a man of valor as he is suffering from leprosy. Now, there were different degrees of leprosy. When we think about leprosy, you know, your skin is peeling off and what have you. And that is ultimately what happens if leprosy is not treated. We don't know exactly what stage Naaman was at, but he was clearly a leper. They could see something was wrong with him. As much of valor and everything else that they talked about him, they could also see that he was a leper. And he was a commander of the army, and we read about some of the things that the army did. And one of those was it conducted raids. A group of men would go out, and they would raid, of all people, the children of Israel. And they would steal from them. But not only did they steal things, they also abducted people. And one of the people that was abducted was this young girl. And here she is, away from her family, away from her parents, away from her friends, in a strange place, in the house of Naaman, the commander of the army. We don't know very much about Naaman and his family. We don't know what kind of a family that it was. And it's really hard to tell by just looking at scripture, but you could argue that maybe they were treating her well, because at least she could have these conversations with them. She had come from a place, no matter what age she was, that she was brought up, if this was a traditional Israelite family, she was brought up knowing God. She was a little girl, or a girl. We don't know how old she was, but she probably had not reached childbearing age. She was a little girl. But just like we saw in the video, little girls with the right training, they can know about Jesus. They can know their God. And so even though she's in this strange situation, even though she's in this hard situation, even though she finds herself surrounded by pagans, surrounded by idols, she knew in whom she believed. And here's a situation where all the pagan idols and all the things around her, none of them could help her mistress's husband. No one could help this man. But she had heard about a man. I don't know if she had seen Elijah before she was abducted. I don't know that. I don't know how she knew about Elijah, but she knew about Elijah. Remember, Elijah was the one that followed Elijah. And he had to double the anointing. Remember Elijah and Elisha, they had to cross the Jordan. And when they crossed the Jordan, Elijah took his mantle, which is the robe that he had, and slapped it on the water, and the waters parted. And then Elijah and Elisha walked across. Now, Elijah didn't have to worry because he was going to go up. But Elisha had to worry because once those waters closed back, if he couldn't do the same thing that Elijah did, he's stuck. But he took off his mantle and slapped the water, and the waters parted. And his ministry began. It was Elisha who told the Shunammite woman, she said, what can I do for you for the kindness that you've shown me? You've erected a room for me, and that every time I come, I could go to this room, and I really appreciate it. So what can I do for you? And the only thing he noticed is that she didn't have children. He says, by this time next year, you'll have a child. And true enough, she had a child. But the worst thing is that child died. And she ran to Elisha. Said, my child is dying. I told you, just leave me alone. And you brought me this child. Now he's dying. Elisha came, and like Elijah did, he stretched himself out and laid over that child. And life came back into that child. That's the Elisha that she knew. And she had this information. She had this experience. Even though the things in her life right at that moment didn't seem to add up to all of the things that she'd heard about Elisha, and I'm going through what I'm going through, she didn't let that stop her from sharing what she knew. Oh, hear me. Does somebody out there know their God? But maybe the things you're going through right now doesn't add up to all of that. But you know he's a healer. You know he's a deliverer. You know he's a way maker. Oh, but right now I'm without a job. Right now my body isn't acting quite right. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength, mount up with wings as eagles, run and not be weary, walk and not faint. She didn't let her situation or circumstances stop her from sharing the good news she had. Hear me now. We have good news. But sometimes there are things in my life that would want me to close up my mouth and not talk about the goodness of the Lord here in the land of the living. But he is good. And they that wait upon him shall renew their strength. And so she began to share. I know a man. I know a man that he could heal my master of this leprosy. Sometimes even say that. It just, here it is. I'm a slave girl. I was free within Israel. Now I'm bound. But yet that's not going to stop me from sharing what my God is. So she shared about what the prophet of her God could do. And Naaman heard it. I guess she told her mistress or her, whatever you call it. Anyway, mistress. And her mistress went and told her husband, Naaman. And Naaman went and told the king of Syria. And the king of Syria started writing a letter. Wrote a letter to the king of Israel. Syria is just to the north of Israel. You remember back in those days, there was one nation, the nation of Israel, under Saul and David and Solomon. But after Solomon, the nation was divided into two parts, the kingdom of Judah in the south and the kingdom of Israel in the north. And to the north of the kingdom of Israel was Syria. The Syrian king sent a letter. And it's interesting what he said within the letter. And 2 Kings chapter 5, verse 6. And he brought the letter to the king of Israel. So Naaman took the letter that the king wrote and brought it to the king of Israel. And this is what the letter said. Now be advised, when this letter comes to you, that I have sent Naaman my servant to you, that you may heal him of his leprosy. Now that is a problem. Well, if something happens, you go to the top man, right? The top man is the king. Oh, but that's not the way the economy of God works. He couldn't do anything. As a matter of fact, not only could he not do anything, he started to get worried. You must be trying to pick a fight with me. You think I'm able to raise someone? You think I'm able to cure someone from leprosy? But Elisha heard about this. And I love what Elisha said when he heard about this. In verse number 8, so it was when Elijah, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had torn his clothes, that he sent to the king saying, why have you torn your clothes? And I can see the king say, well, you must not have read the letter that I got. He goes on and says, please let him come to me. Here it is. And he shall know that there is a prophet in Israel, that there's a man of God. We need people who can be in strange places, but are able to talk about their God, who he is, and what he can do. Those strange places might be the job on which you work. Those strange places might be you find yourself in a jail cell, but there's still God who's on the throne. He wants to be lifted up. He wants people to know about him that we might want to overlook, but he has not. So wherever you are, will I lift up the name of Jesus? Despite what's going on within my life, will I be able to say, he's able? Will I be able to say, he can heal you? He can change your situation. I know you're looking at me right now, but that's all right. They were looking at Job that way, but at the end of the book of Job, it says his latter end was better than his beginning. See how forceful, how impactful, how beneficial are words. The right words. And she was speaking right words despite her situation. And now this man with leprosy finds himself in front of the very man that she's been talking about, who's able to heal him. And guess what that man tells him? Now you need to understand, he's coming, Naaman's coming with this entourage. So it's Naaman and all of his buddies and servants, and he's carrying gold and changes of clothing and all of that. And he comes to Elisha's house, and I don't believe his house was a mansion. He just comes, or what he brought overran Elisha's house by the time he got in there. Here he is. You know what Elisha simply says? He says, okay, I'm not coming out. I'm going to give this to one of my servants. Just go tell him. Dip 7 times in the Jordan River. Now, I know everybody here would have said, I do is just go on and dip 7 times in the Jordan River. No, when you got upset, I did. I came all this way. I brought all this stuff. And you ain't even got the decency to come out there and say hi? I mean, we get upset now. Somebody comes to our house, leave a note, didn't even say hello, just left. He says, wait a minute, if this guy is able to do all of this, he can at least come out. He can at least tell me himself. And look at what he's asking me to do. Dip 7 times. Has anybody ever been to the Jordan River? A few of you have. Oh, that's good. When you went there, was it clear? No! That stuff was downright dirty. As a matter of fact, I got in there and I was baptized with Pastor Jerry. I was afraid if I slipped and went underwater, nobody would find me. That's not clean stuff. And that's where he's been told to dip, but it doesn't make any sense. See, a lot of things that the Lord asks us to do, to us it doesn't make any sense because it's about faith. It's faith that changes God. It's faith that changes us. Without faith, it's impossible to please God. For he that cometh to God must believe that he is. He's the rewarder of those who diligently seek him. So what he was doing was saying, I know you brought all of this gold, all of this silver, you brought all of these animals, but you've missed out on the currency in heaven. It's not gold, it's not silver. The streets are lined with gold. It's about our heart. It's about your faith in God. And what that will do. So just go dip 7 times in the Jordan. Because that's faith. When you find yourself doing things that doesn't make any sense to you, but you're doing it because the man of God, because God himself has commanded it. Amen. And you know what happened? He left. Said, I don't want any of this. Now, you're the one that got the leprosy. What you ask me to do doesn't make any sense. Sometimes what God asks us to do just doesn't make any sense. Why are we going into house churches? I mean, look at this. We still got a sanctuary right here. Oh, why do we have to go into homes? Because the Lord told us to. Well, explain it to me. If I'm not God, you go ask him yourself. So he left. See, there was the words of this young girl. All that she knew is, I know a man that can heal you. Then there was the words of this prophet. The prophet says, without faith, it's impossible to please him. This is what the Lord told me to tell you, and you just need to do it. But then there's one more group. I love this group. Because most of the time, we miss this group. It's found in 2 Kings chapter number 5 and verse number 13, where it says, and his servants came near and spoke to him and said, now this is my father. If the prophet had told you to do something great, would you not have done it? How much more then when he says to you, wash and be clean? You know, I've known the Lord now for, I guess I am a lot older than I thought I was. Okay. Okay, yeah, you add 40 to 28, that still doesn't get to my age. It's over 40 years then. And there are still times when I'm not unsure exactly what the Lord is doing. But it's nice to have somebody that when you start leaning, when your faith starts running out, when you start wondering, they're there to prop you up. Oh, have you ever found yourself getting tired and you start fading out and somebody on the side just gives you a gentle nudge? It's enough to keep you up. That's what Naaman's servants, they had a special relationship because he called them, or they called him, Father. And they were there saying, yeah, wait, Naaman. I mean, I know you want to leave, and I can understand the reason why, but I mean, you still got leprosy. And all he's asking you to do is something that sounds foolish, but it's not going to hurt you to do it. Maybe at least we should try it. Has anybody ever been there? Just having that person, I mean, it's not that they shove you. It's not that they hit you over the head with a bat or anything like that. They just gave you just a gentle little nudge when you faded out. That they just said, wait. You can stay there a little bit longer, a little bit longer. See, I believe we need all. We need those who may not know anymore, but I know a man. We need those who know the word, are able to get in touch with the Lord. But we need those who, when we begin to fade away, they're just down there just to prop us up a little bit longer. So they propped him up a little bit longer. Long enough for him to go down 7 times. And on that 7th time, he came back, skin as clean as a little baby, because of the God we serve. Now, that would be exciting. But there's something that's even more exciting. It's found in 2 Kings, chapter number 5. In verse number 15. After he had gone down the 7th time, and he came up with flesh like a little child. Verse 15. And he returned to the man of God, he and all of his aides, and came and stood before him. And he said, indeed, now I know that there is no God in all the earth except in Israel. Now therefore, please take a gift from your servant. The first thing first, nobody got excited, Lord. Nobody got excited, Lord. But I'm excited. Because he didn't just come up healed, he came up knowing God. You see, I can be healed today and sick tomorrow. What really matters, where is my eternity? If it's with him, no matter what happens, I'm okay. And that's what the Lord wants. He wants to take these things, these troubles, these issues, and he wants them to be used to bring us into an eternal life with him. What the devil meant for evil, God wants to turn it around and bring good out of it. So when Naaman came back, didn't just come back healed. He had to tell his wife, honey, throw away all them idols. I found the real God. And he's able to do exceedingly abundantly above all we could ask or think. But it started because a little girl told her family about the Lord she knew and kept on going because the prophet, even though someone came in all of their prestige and robes and all that kind of stuff, he just simply said, this is what the Lord is saying. And it was able to reach finality because there was a group of people that said, even though you don't understand it, even though it doesn't make any sense, God has something he wants to do. Just stay in there a little longer. I got 36 seconds to tell this one story. I remember when I was early on saved, well, when I was younger, that's what I'm trying to say. And I really wanted to try to follow the Lord. And, we talked about visiting people in the hospital and things like that. I hated hospitals. It's a long story to it, but I didn't go to hospital for probably from about 12 years old till 28. Never went to a hospital. I couldn't stand it. Well, I gave my heart to the Lord. I began to read, visit the sick, and then our church announced that there's a mother of the church that was sick, and I knew her, and she, was befriended me and some other things. So I said I should probably go and visit her, but I haven't been to a hospital. Oh no. So I said okay, and I was talking to Sister Terry. Oh, she's my wife now, but anyway, Sister Terry back in those days. said, I just feel like the Lord is, saying maybe I should go to the hospital. I haven't been to hospitals. I don't really know what to do. Okay, let's go. I just don't remember saying we are going. I just remember saying I wanted to go, okay? But then I thought about it. I said, wait a minute now, I don't even like hospitals. Maybe if she goes, she'll just take care of everything and I'll just watch what she does. So we got to the hospital and I came to see a certain mother in the church. And I went to the room they told me to go to. There was nobody in the room. I said, now, Lord, I'm trying to follow you. I believe that you're leading me, and I get here, and there's nobody in the room. He doesn't just want to heal Naaman. He wants to bring Naaman into a relationship with him. I went to the hospital. There was no one in that room. And something that I normally don't do, I normally don't, hospitals are private areas, and I don't normally, when something is private, I keep it private. I don't go around looking, trying to figure some things out. But as I was going out, I just started looking around the place. And I just passed this room, and the next door was a door leading out. And once you went through that door, you couldn't come back in. You had to go all the way around and check yourself in and go through all that stuff again. And Sister Terry had gone before me because I was walking. Then I stopped a little bit. She opened up the door. She was getting ready to go out the door. And then she says, Brother Carl, what's wrong? I said, I don't know. There's just something about, I stopped by this room and I just had a sense. Well, I think about things a lot. That's not one of her problems. She just grabbed my arm and next thing I know, I'm in the room. In the room in front of this stranger. I don't like to be in front of strangers. I can't even talk. I stutter most of the time. So I'm in front of these strangers. And I come through the door and, she has my hand. She's dragging me in. And we get, maybe about 2-3 feet from the bed. And there's a woman in the bed minding her own business. And she's looking out a window. And the only thing on the other side of that window is a brick wall. She's looking out the window. And next thing I know, the only way I can describe it, if you've ever watched roller derby, where they whip you around, I found myself being whipped around, and now I'm right in front of the window, this woman all by myself. I was self-conscious. I can't do this. And I look, I don't even know, I'm not even sure what to say. I said, I'm Carl McAulay, this is Terry Thomas, and, we're here, to pray with you. And she says, oh, I was looking out that window, and I was asking God to send somebody. Then I had a little bit more courage. I said, well, do you mind if I read you a scripture? I turned to Psalms 27. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? And I read through that psalm all the way to the end. And as the more I read, the more joy came onto her face. At the end, she says, son, you probably didn't know this, but that's my favorite song. Because the Lord wants to show us, He wants to do things that are deeper within our life. He wants to come to know Him, not just to get what He has, but to get Him. And this was part of my experience of growing in Him. That when He asks me to do something, most of the time, there's more to it than what I can see. And I'm learning, since I can't see the more that's there, just to trust Him and do what He says to do. Deuteronomy 29:29, the secret things belong unto the Lord our God, but those things that are revealed belong to us and our children, that we might do all the works of the law. I'm saying The Lord has called us as a church to do house churches. And I know that people ask me why. I don't know all the reasons why. Because I've learned the Lord doesn't have to tell me all the reasons why. But he takes me back over certain times in my life where he didn't let me see the why. He said, isn't that enough? Haven't I shown you enough that you can just trust me? Because I always have a good reason. And if you hang in there with me, not only will you see the good reason, you'll be blessed by the good reason. Saints of God, the Lord is leading us. If you ask me to tell you all the details, I'm going to have to tell you, you got to ask him because I don't have them all. But I know it lines up with his word. And I know that he has shown me over the years that he could do exceedingly abundantly above all we can ask or think, according to the power that works within us. I don't know what it is that you're going through. I don't know exactly what the Lord is doing within your life. But I believe that there are people here that have had experiences with God that you can encourage people by just saying, I know a God who can heal. I know a God who can redeem. I know a God who can supply. I know that there are other people you can even go deeper. You have the gift of prophecy. The Lord speaks to you, and you can tell us about things that are going on even right now. And I know that there's some of you. Maybe you may not be in either one of those categories, but you can be back there to prop me up when it looks like I'm fading. You can say, you can make it. It's going to be all right. You've watched him in the past. He's the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. And what he's done for one, he can do for all. Can you find yourself in one of those categories? If so, let's believe the Lord that together he can do a work among us that eye has not seen, neither has ear heard, nor has it entered into the hearts of men, what God has prepared for those who love him. But he has shown it to us by his Spirit and his word, its spirit and it is life. Father God, as we bow our heads, we thank you for reminding us that there are times where we're just like that young girl. We can say, I know what he can do. He's done this. Have you tried him? Have you prayed to him? Have you called on him? Or, Lord, we could be in that category like Elisha, where we could just give you a prophetic word, a right now word. Or there are times when we just on the other side, just holding people up, knowing that you do all things well. We thank you, Lord, because your word is so full of promises. You call them exceeding great and precious promises, that by these we might be partakers of the divine nature. And that's what we want. We want to look more and more like you. And we want to be obedient to your word. Whether we understand it completely or don't understand it at all, as long as we know that it's from you, we trust you. We're living in some difficult times. Times, no matter what your political persuasion, there are just no answers. No answers that man has. But we know, Lord, you have the answers because you know the end from the beginning. Help us to be used by you, to bring into this troubled world, into this world where people are looking for answers, the true answers. Oh, how forceful are right words. Let us speak the right words, that they might have impact, they might bring light, might bring might to those who've lost their strength, to those who've lost their direction. Help us to realize that if God is for me, then who can be against me? We love you, Lord. If there's anyone out there who does not know you, at this very moment, Just let them know how real you are. Remind them of encounters that they've had that they might not even recognize it at the moment. But you bring it back to their remembrance right now. And as they remember those encounters, let them realize that you want to have even a deeper relationship. And all they need to do is just to say, yes, Lord. Yes to your will. Yes to your way. Yes to you. In Jesus' name we pray.